Judgment, 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 final judgment, final judgment, final
Good morning, good morning, good morning. It's the Final Judgement with Tony Jigsaw Cutillo, brought to you as always by Win Daily Sports, Heat Ratio Sports, Win Daily Sports, where you get all your sports betting and DFS fantasy needs, and Heat Ratio Sports, where all you get your local and national coverage needs. And then most importantly, sponsored by SEObrand.com, the place where all analytics begin. More on them later. Big day today. Big day in the city of brotherly love. Obviously, you see I'm repping the Phillies right now. Obviously, we got a big game 3 with Knowles on the mound coming to Citizens Bank Park. 4:37 on first pitch. It's going to be electric. The stadium is going to be rocking. Obviously, it is going to be rocking. Adam checking in says, "What's up, Tony? Go Phillies and Cowboys suck." Yes, we're going to get into Cowboys and Eagles in a minute. Don't want to spend a lot of time on the Phillies only because, listen, we went post game on Wednesday night and we had a blast. If you missed that, make sure you check it out. I kind of went a little jigsaw on everybody for like the last 15 minutes, but it was fun. Everybody had a reaction. Everybody, explained how they felt. We all blasted Reese Hoskins, and rightfully so. There's going to be no change there, which I think is the wrong move. But hey, we're going to get into that, right? We're going to get into that. This is a must win. These are 2 must-win games. You cannot go back to Atlanta. I think we all know that. Weather is going to be absolutely impeccable. This is going to be baseball weather. This is going to be baseball weather for this game. So a lot of interesting tidbits in that game that could happen, that will happen, and we will need to persevere. This is not going to be a 1-0 game. We will need to persevere. And if Roy Halladay, if the baseball gods are shining down on us today, all right, and they're going back to that Cincinnati no-hitter kind of game in the playoffs, shine that down right now on Aaron Nola, because I really think it's going to be that kind of performance that we need in order to get us to that next step. So, and then the question becomes, does Wheeler pitch on 3 days rest? So we're going to get into all that, but that'll probably be on Monday's show. On Monday's show also, I have my man Phil from New Shoulder, Phil Hicks. It's going to be a really cool interview. He's going to be talking about this machine they invented to basically rehab and prevent UCL tears and ACL injuries, and which we're seeing right now with Bryce Harper, obviously. So it's going to be good to get him on the show. We get a lot of questions answered. What comes next, right? Well, what is the next step? And is it surgery? Is it small surgery, big surgery? Is it out of baseball for a year? Is it rehab? So we're going to get into that on Monday. And today, we got a bunch of judgments today. This is Football Friday, right? It's all Football Friday. So this is where not only do we talk about the preview the Eagles game in the NFL, but, we also have, we're going to drop a couple DFS fantasy names that I feel like you should play this week, because I am a fantasy guy. This is all going to be brought to you, obviously, by Win Daily Sports. I'm also going to give you a couple anytime touchdowns that you want to play this weekend as well. Maybe get some back. Last night, if you're not following, listen, I'm opening up to a whole new world, okay? I never said I would be on TikTok, but guess what? I went on TikTok. I splashed. I don't know, man. It's like, eventually you just got to kind of cave and give in. And my man Jason, who runs Win Daily, was like, Tony, They need Jigsaw on TikTok. So Jigsaw's on TikTok now. I'm having a little fun. It ain't perfect, but the big thing is we're hitting, right? So last night we go 2 for 3, almost go 3 for 3 if Mooney catches that touchdown. The night before we go 2 for 2 with you, Darvish. So everybody's making money on TikTok. So make sure you're following the Win Daily Sports TikTok account, and you will see my ugly mug on there all the time. And then we're going to talk about Eagles Cowboys, right? Eagles Cowboys, big NFC East battle. I think this is a bigger game than people think. I think people are just overlooking the Cowboys right away because the name Cooper Rush, and you can't do it. Okay, the Cowboys are still a very talented team, and defensively, they are going to get after our quarterback and give us the biggest challenge that we have faced all year. So, again, Citizens Bank Park, the link, everything's gonna be rocking this week in Philadelphia, and the fans just need to shell out. The fans need to shell out, which they will, and bring that energy that only we know how to bring. That's the most important part that we only know how to bring. And then, again, I talked about football. And let's stick on a football thing. The other job is going to be the people that play fantasy football, and we've been playing it for many, many years. Obviously, whether it be a season-long league, there's new inventions called best ball, which I extremely love, and then you have daily fantasy. And I do a spot for Jacob Sports on This Week of Football with my man Pat Callahan, and every week, he talks about, these no-name players showing up, guys that we don't predict. And it's really killing the season-long fantasy vibe because, you go into these drafts and you're drafting guys that you think you're going to be consistent week in and week out. And these offenses are getting so intricate now and they're changing things up. And what's happening is you're getting these guys that produce that are, unpredictable, and guys that usually aren't even on fantasy rosters, which makes the evolution of daily fantasy probably that more integral, because I think that, I want to get your vibe on this, but I think that most people that are playing season long fantasy are going to start to just gravitate towards that daily fantasy league because, at least every week you could change up those parts. So I think people are really, when it comes to fantasy sports, I think that is the absolute way to go. I think it's a lot easier. We live in a time where everybody is extremely busy. People working 2-3 jobs. If you're an entrepreneur, you're working one job that's probably the weight of 2 to 3 jobs, right? You're working 16, 20-hour days, and you don't always have time to be checking rosters. And like when you were 16 and 17, and listen, I got 2 boys, right? They're 15 and 17, and they're playing fantasy religiously, and they're always asking me questions. Hey dad, who do I pick up? Hey dad, what do I do? And the funny thing is, that's all they have to worry about. Go to school, work their job, and play fantasy, right? So they have all the time in the world to sit there on waiver wires and read the articles. And listen, we're adults. We don't have that time. We don't have that time. So we have to go with, number one, we have to go with gut feelings. Number two, we have to find a place where, that's going to give us the information on demand that we need. And a la Win Daily Sports, make sure you're following them. Win Daily Sports, get your free week. Win big as the promo code. After that, $5.99 a week. You can't be anywhere that's only $5.99 a week to give you every single projection model that you need in order to win some tickets. We had just 2 guys, actually one guy, won for a total of about $137,000 last week. It's just crazy. All for $20. Nuts. Absolutely nuts. But yeah, so I think that everybody in your everyday lives of craziness, go into the daily fantasy world is absolutely, in my opinion, the way to go. But I want to hear from you too. I want to hear, is that something that you're thinking about, or maybe the jump that you did? And then I want to talk a little wrestling. We talk wrestling, and I love the wrestling talk. I am, wrestling is going to be a complete steady addition on this show. I love talking wrestling. I'm very excited about the new direction. I've been talking about it with WWE. I'm a huge AEW guy. I do work with NWA. I love the NWA Power promotion. I love Impact Wrestling. I love, listen, the wrestlers that they have are very down to earth. They're very approachable. I love being able to interview these wrestlers, guys, gals, whoever it is, and find out their rise to stardom, and let everybody realize, it's not easy. It's not easy to make it. But what's going on right now is, with the evolution of WWE based on Triple H and HBK. is the factions, right? The factions in wrestling are coming back. AEW started out with like the Jericho Celebration Society, right? And the Elite, these are what wrestling has been born upon, right? Wrestling, when factions started way back in the day, to now, and they're coming back. They're going to come back strong in 2023 and at the end of 2022. I'm going to tell you that right now. You saw that with Damage Control with Bailey. That's just the beginning. That's just the beginning. You're seeing Bray Wyatt, the Bray Wyatt Six, the Wyatt family coming back. You're going to see all these Judgment Day, right? You see it right now. So I want to hear who your favorite factions were in wrestling. We just saw the 25th anniversary of DX, which is always great to see DX. How do you not like the Generation X? Like to see X Pac out there. Like to see my man Road Dogg packing on some pounds and getting a little long in the tooth, but he's still getting it, still slinging it out there. And obviously HBK looking really old. But that's HBK, man. He decided to run um, a clean bill of health where he watches everything that he ingests and not going to have any body fat on HBK. That's one thing. But man, is he an integral part of what WWE is doing right now? From the NXT product, the product that you're breeding these these wrestlers to come up to the main roster. So it's the most important part, in my opinion. The corporate part, are the most integral part of WWE right now. Adam checking in. Adam says the corporate ministry. Yeah, Adam, keep that. We're gonna let's get a little Eagle talk here, and we'll end with that. I want to give everybody a preview of the show because again, we got to talk about wrestling at the end because that is my bread and butter. So let's get right into Eagles week. Okay, it's Eagles Dallas week. I think that even though the excitement is there, I don't think it's at that level right now, only because of what's going on with the Philadelphia Phillies. The Phillies are in the playoffs. It's Red October. Hey, shout out Flyers too, who win their first game, the opener. Under new coach John Tortorella. A newfound youth on the team. We'll see where it goes. Obviously, they're rebuilding, but it's just nice to get a win, right? 76ers will be starting really, really soon in the next week and a half. Their preseason is over. Tyrese Maxey looks like a complete beast. On Monday, more on that Monday will be, probably the Sixers preview show for the Final Judgment, where we talk all things NBA. I'll get a couple guests on for that as well. But Eagles Dallas has a different vibe to it this week, right? Because you don't have Dak Prescott. Okay. For the Eagles, you're 5-0, and all you're hearing about is they haven't played anybody good yet. Right. The national narrative continues to be the same damn thing. They haven't played anybody good yet. And I'm not trying to steal a word from Andy Reid, but when Andy Reid was here, he beat into our souls that every win on Sunday, every win in the National Football League is a win. Okay, it's hard to win in this league, whether you're good. Look at that game last night. That trash contest last night. Still, the Chicago Bears should have had it locked up. They muff a punt. And then what about Carson throwing a major block, right? We saw that before, but even though I'm not a big fan of the guy right now, I got to give him a shout out for that tremendous block on Roquan Smith, who again is not a small man, but it changed in the snap of a finger. And lo and behold, who wins that game? Right? The Commanders, when you thought they were done, right? Football can change in the snap of a finger. So I don't want to hear about this team's bad, this team's good. Listen, the word is we're 5-0. The Philadelphia Eagles are 5-0. They're on the top of a mountain all by themselves. And after this week, they're looking to stay on the top of that mountain all by themselves. The Dallas Cowboys are going to come in here and they're going to devise a defensive game plan, obviously around guys like Michael Parsons, that are going to give Jalen Hurts a lot of different stunts and a lot of different looks. And Jalen's going to have to be ready. And I feel he will be ready. This is not going to be, I saw a lot of people talking about, I need this to be the A.J. Brown game. I don't think this is going to be the A.J. Brown game. I think this is going to be the Dallas Goedert game. Okay, this is going to be the game when Dallas Goedert, again, you saw it last week. He started, but this is the week where you need Dallas Goedert to just shred that middle of the field. because that's the only way that they're not going to be stacking a box against our run game and our quarterback. And you have some people that are dinged up along the offensive line, specifically in Jason Kelsey, who is your most important part. So you're going to have to do things that maybe you don't want to do because you want to move the ball downfield. But I think that, that is going to open up those deep shots. And I do think you'll get a deep shot to a guy like Quez Watkins or AJ Brown. But I think this is going to be more of a possession across the middle type game in the beginning. And I think because Dallas is going to come with all 7 or 8 in the box and say, okay, Jalen beat me. Okay, Miles Sanders beat me. We're going to go one-on-one coverage because we feel as though our D-backs are very, very good. And we're going to make you beat us. And the way you're going to beat them is you're going to have those staying in chip, fly out to the outside, plays at the tight end, specifically Dallas Goedert. So I think this is a big Dallas Goedert game. Now, on the defensive side of the ball, this is easy, right? In the sense that you need to lock down these receivers and you got to get the Cooper Rush. You got to force him into mistakes. You got to force him into mistakes. He is going to be, listen, Cooper Rush is a game manager right now, a game manager that's been given time to sit in the pocket and pick apart guys on the offensive side of the ball. Time for routes to develop. Okay, that's exactly what Cooper Rush is able to do. So we have to mess up that timing, just like we did with Trevor Lawrence. We have to mess up that timing, and I think that that's one of the most important things on the defensive side of the ball. And the Cowboys are getting healthy now, right? You have a CeeDee Lamb who's starting to come to his own. You have a healthy Michael Gallup. And Noah Brown has been able to show you that he's a very good third receiver on this team. And you still have to tell you whether Schultz is fully healthy or not. You have the tight ends who they like to use a lot. So again, that's why we look at this game and we can't specifically just say this game is going to be easy. This game is going to be a pushover, because it's not. Joe checking in. Joe says, did the Flyers win if nobody watched that? Maybe that's why, Joe, because nobody watches the arena. How about Thompson bringing the drum out there for the Flyers? Good for them. Okay, good for them. Joe says, I'll take Goedert with touches, but limit the screens with him. Open it up and then hit Quez deep. Exactly. I think they will throw a screen or two to him only because he's going to stay in and chip and block. But I do. I like Goedert with the touches 100%. I think that this is a game where he's going to get 7 to 8 looks. And let's look at this. Okay, let's look at right now. Let's see if these numbers are out, because this is Football Friday. It's a Monday night or Sunday night game, so they may not. Oh, they are. So let's see. We got the Dallas Goedert. Okay, right now his over and under is 45.5 at -115. Okay, his over and under is over 45.5. And listen, I'm going to tell you, this is what we're going to do right now. I tell you guys, this is Football Friday. I'm going to give you guys some prop bets. Like I do. Listen, I'm getting to be like the prop king over here. I'm finding these plus money props. And again, you're not going to get no -150s from me. Okay, -150 doesn't win you any money. It's plus money props. And I'm going to go all in on Dallas Goedert. Last night I went in on Darnell Mooney. I thought it was a Mooney game, which it was. He almost gave me the triple threat by scoring a touchdown. But I'm going to go Dallas Goedert here. I really like these numbers. I think over 45.5 is -115 right now. I think you can go to the alternate line and juice that up. Let's see if we go down to the alternate line, which is not available yet. So you want to check that out. Every now and then you go to the alternate line where you could probably get 50 plus receiving yards for Goedert at plus money, probably plus 100, plus 110. I think that's where you go. So I would definitely take that. I would take Dallas Goedert plus 100 for 50 plus yards. And I'll take his over at 4.5. plus 110. That means he's going to get 5 catches for at least 50 yards in that game. I really, really like that. And let's look at the game specifically from a touchdown standpoint. Going anytime touchdown. Who do we feel is going to score? Listen, I'm going to go on the other side because Dallas is still going to score. I'm going to go Tony Pollard at plus 250 for an anytime touchdown in this game. And you know what? Why don't we just go with the triple threat again? Let's go with the triple threat and go Dallas Goedert plus 205 anytime touchdowns. There you go. There's your prop bets for the Final Judgment right there for this game. I really, really like that. I think that those are some very attainable bets. Like I said, I'm going to give you attainable bets. Okay, they're going to be plus money bets. They're going to be attainable. So if you're just listen, if you're a rookie out there just starting, again, let me know. We got plenty of associations with many sports books all over to get you some free deposit money. Obviously, this segment brought to you by Win Daily Sports. So on the other side of the ball, the big thing everybody's talking about is the special teams, right? In order to win football games, the special teams have to be huge. And you watched it last night in Chicago. The special teams, what happened? The special teams hit them in the mouth. A fumble at the 15. They get the ball first and goal and they go in. And what a fantastic story by Brian Robinson for everything that is going on in the city of Philadelphia, which is just a shame. The city is just gone and crumbled up to violence. And you see that Brian Robinson Jr., what happens, he, attempted carjacking, he gets shot. And unfortunately, for him that happens, but he comes back. He comes back and he scores a touchdown, kind of like a Cinderella type story last night, which was great to see. So that's my thing in this game is special teams is going to be huge. Hold on to the ball, make sure that you're covering because the Dallas Cowboys are a very good special teams player, very good special teams play. They do play a lot of starters on the special team, so you need to watch that. And you need to make sure that you get home when you need to get home, and you make sure you hold on to the ball when you're holding the ball. Fair catch if you must. If you're going to take off, make sure you have a hole because this is going to be the kind of game everybody thinks it's going to be a blowout. I do not see this game being a blowout. I see this game being a momentum swing one way or the other, and that momentum swing could come by special teams. So really need to look at that. Adam says you got to stop Pollard and Elliott. And again, listen, our run defense, this, how I always say, you're always going to hear Jigsaw say, this is a so-and-so game, or this is I said for fantasy last week was going to be a Gabe Davis week. This has got to be a Jordan Davis game. This has got to be a Jordan Davis game. These guys in the middle are going to have to clog up. It's going to have to be a Jordan Davis game. It's going to have to be a TJ Edwards game. Okay, these guys, and I think this is going to be a CJ Gardner Johnson game where he's going to have to come up and play run stopper from the safety position. I do feel as though it's going to be a big game for him a lot, or as from a third cornerback position. Either way, it's going to be a game where we have to stop these guys. I'm not a Zeke Elliott guy, still doesn't look right, but he still has a burst and he's still a big guy. Tony Pollard to me is the more elusive back. And the reason why TJ Edwards is going to be, him and Kazir White are going to be huge is because Pollard's going to like to get out in space. He's going to like to get out in space, and that's something we're going to have to account for. It really is. We're going to have to account for Tony Pollard getting out in space, and he could be the X factor for the Dallas Cowboys against us. So really, really big matchup, but I'm confident. I'm very confident. I like it right now. When we look at this game, let's see. Right now, we look at this game. Let's see what the line is right now. So as of right now, the over and under is 42. And right now the Cowboys are getting 6.5. Really? Wow. That's telling you something, right? The line's telling you that this is the Eagles game. That's the Eagles game. Plus 6.5. They're getting almost 7. Cowboys are almost getting 7. I hate to say it, but I think I may take that. I do. I may take that because I could see this being a 4-point game. 27-23 kind of game. 24-21, 24-20. I don't see this being a blowout by any means. I don't. This is the NFC East, man. This is the NFC East. Anything can happen in the NFC East. And I think this is going to be a game that's going to be a lot closer than people think. But I'm still going to go Philadelphia Eagles. Obviously, I told you what, I'm going 24-20. That's where I'm going 24-20 in this game. That means I'm taking that bet, right? I'm taking that bet. I really like. There's no way the Cowboys get 6.5. There's no way. There's no way I just don't see it. So again, I do like the Eagles in a close game. I do like 24-20. So again, make sure you throw those Dale Goddard bets in there. There's over 45.5 at plus 120. are actually over 50 for plus 100 and over 4.5 for plus 120 when it comes from the receptions. Make sure you get in there for that. So Adam says, need the front four to get to the quarterback for a lot of pressure. Absolutely. You got to get to the quarterback. You got to mess up his cadence. You got to mess up his timing. That's going to be the key to beating Cooper Rush. I think we know that. And on the other side, it's going to be Jalen sensing that pressure from guys like Micah Parsons that are going to be rushing that line. It's going to be a big time rush, big time blitz packages from the Dallas Cowboys. So Jalen's going to have to look for that. So go Eagles, right? Go Phillies. And right now, we're going to talk a little wrestling. Again, this show brought to you by Heat Ratio Sports, where you get all your local and national sports needs, and brought to you by Daily Sports, who our betting segment was just brought to when we talk about DFS and the prop market. Props for profit. That's what we call them. Props for profit. Jigsaw crazy props. That's what you get here right here with Judge Jigsaw. Last night, 2 for 2. Wednesday night, 2 for 2. Thursday night, 2 for 3. We're looking to go 2 for 2 or 3 for 3 in our triple threat Dallas Goddard segment for us on Sunday as well. But right now, factions in wrestling are coming back. And I think that the reason why they're coming back is because, number one, they're getting pushed by guys like Triple H and HBK. But number two, it's because they're very popular. You know, the analytics push, you know, what analytics meaning ratings push towards having factions in the wrestling world. And speaking of analytics, make sure if you want to know big or small where your analytics come from, where to get better analytics, meaning how do we push traffic to our site? How do we get traffic to our social media? What are the new inventions coming out with social media? That's why you follow SEObrand.com. You follow them at SEO Brand on Twitter, on Instagram. But SEObrand.com is a firm that's been doing this digital marketing for over 15 plus years. They work one-on-one with you with their case managers. And what they do is they make sure that you understand not only how to get traffic, but where that traffic is coming from, big or small, doesn't matter. Could be a YouTube page, could be a Facebook page, could be a major company. They work with big and small all over. But the main thing is they take all your advice. They take all your calls that come in, cold calls. Okay. They take cold calls, which means people that come in and inquire, and they turn them right around into sales calls for you and for your site. And that's what you need. And you need to know how it works. So make sure you go follow them at SEO Brand. They are the flagship sponsor because, again, we use them here to make sure we get our analytics in and our traffic into the right area. So SEObrand.com. Make sure you go follow them today. Get a consultation and let them know you saw this ad on the Final Judgment and Tony Jigsaw Cutillo sent you. Factions in wrestling. I found this article called the 16 best stables in wrestling. Okay. And it's from 137pm.com. And I had to disagree with some of it, but I bring it up because I want to go through these factions with you, because I think, we're coming off the heels of the D-Generation X reunion. And again, it was what we thought it was going to be, right? It was what we thought it was going to be. But it was nice to see D-Generation X together. I'm a big D-Generation X guy. This is off the heels of the Wyatt family coming back and trying to be announced. But Adam's already checking in. Yeah, Adam checks in and says the Four Horsemen. Now, the question I want, and this is how this works. The judgments, right? Everything's a judgment on this show. And I want the verdict. I'm going to give you my verdict, but I also want the verdict coming from you guys as well. I want you guys checking in. First judgment I need verdict on is there any doubt in anybody's mind that stables began with the most prestigious of them all, meeting the Four Horsemen? Right? Is there any way that led by Ric Flair, and I'm talking about the original Four Horsemen. I'm talking about Tully and Arn and Ole, right? And J.J. Dillon, right? The original Four Horsemen. That's what I'm talking about. This is before guys like Barry Windham and Lex Luger came in, and even guys like Sid Vicious. But for me, it's the original Four Horsemen, right? That's where the promos began. That's where the allegiance began. That's where having having that manager came along, like a JJ Dillon of that faction, right? It's like the Hurt Business nowadays with MVP. There would be no MVP in the Hurt Business if there was no JJ Dillon with the Four Horsemen. right? And I think that's one of the most important things, that people don't understand is, they were the ones that built it. They were the ones that built it 100%. So you go from looking at how the Four Horsemen began, and that's what opened it up for everybody, right? And every faction that I'm going to mention did something special, right? So again, there's no in order, but I'm going to give you one later on who I think is a very sneaky one, that one of my favorites that doesn't get talked about enough. But obviously, when you talk about factions, you have to mention the NWO, the New World Order. It just changed wrestling forever, right? Everybody remembers that 1996 moment at Bash at the Beach. Who was the secret opponent, right? Because this was a time when I was watching wrestling at that time where I really didn't know if it was real or if it was scripted. I'm not going to say fake because it's not fake. For all you people who want to say wrestling is not fake. Okay, these people get hurt. These people live crazy lives. These people work their ass off in storylines and training. It's not fake. It's scripted, yes, at times. And back then, I didn't realize was the world of wrestling scripted or not. And you had Kevin Nash and Scott Hall come onto the show, break onto the show, and you start to think like, is this real? Because we watched things before, specifically with Ric Flair, going back and forth, knowing that some of that was real, right? So, we had to sit there and think who's going to be this special guy, and who knew? I mean, this was Hulk Hogan, man. This was, say your take your vitamins, say your prayers. This was the Hulkster. He couldn't have. This was almost like, remember when Bailey turned out, Bailey was the young heartthrob, and Bailey, which was infamous, or I say ingenious for WWE to turn her over into a heel. It had that Hulk Hogan kind of vibe, right? Because nobody thought Hulk Hogan would be a heel. Nobody thought there's no way that could be Hulk Hogan. No way. And Hulk comes down, and what does he do? Turns his back on the wrestling business. And listen, the rest Hollywood Hogan character was amazing. Loved every minute of it. Shout out to Hulk to be able to change those stripes and revitalize his wrestling career at such an older age, and just revitalize the art of wrestling into those Monday Night Wars, which was a fantastic time. So obviously, Degeneration X was most important there. The original, right? The original with Shawn Michaels and Triple H and China, the ninth wonder of the world, right? Can't forget about China and Road Dogg and Badass Billy Gunn, Scissor Me Daddy, right? Scissor Me Daddy, with great stuff. Obviously, always pushing the envelope. So you got to mention Degeneration X, but one Adam mentions one faction that I don't think gets a lot of credit, which he's right, is Evolution. I'm a big Evolution guy. Evolution was the modern day Four Horsemen. It really was, right? You had the brawn, you had the gold, you had the prestige, you had the promo ability. And the best thing about it was a guy like Triple H, who was really into his prime, a guy like Ric Flair that was on obviously the later stages of his career, able to offer the promo skills to guys that were very raw in Dave Batista and Randy Orton. And you had Triple H in order to, prop them up from the wrestling and the physicality standpoint, and on how to make their path within the business. And then you also have Ric Flair, the ultimate technician, right, showing them how to sell moves, how to sell moves in the wrestling ring. So I loved it. I'll be honest with you, I loved it. I know, early 2000s, it was like a new Four Horsemen, because of obviously acquiring all the championships. It was definitely the modern day heel domination, right? It brought you up to like the Authority, right, with Stephanie and Triple H. You're always going to have, and I think there's another Authority brewing right now, in WWE. I think that's going to be something that is being looked upon. Adam says the Shield very underrated, very very good. I don't think it was a huge three guys. I don't know, is that a faction or not? maybe possibly I'm talking about like a wider range, but the Shield was definitely a very, very good concept that again, will never be forgotten because all three of those guys go on to stardom. I think that's the most important thing. You back in the day with the Nation of Domination, you know, in the 90s, where the theme song was awesome. Obviously, it built up guys like The Rock, Dwayne Johnson. That's where he got his start. But then you had those personalities like a Farouk who became into the acolytes, and then you have obviously, come on, man, the Godfather, right, where he gets his start. Right, the Godfather, Mustafa gets his start, and he turns into the Train, right? So, which was fantastic. And he always had that phenomenal presence of D'Lo Brown, who did a lot of different things. But the Nation of Domination, very, very underrated. But I'm going to tell you one of my two most underrated facts. I don't want to go through them all. But I want to, and that's what I want to hear from you guys too. Whether you're checking in on YouTube, whether you're checking in on Facebook, whether you're checking in on podcasts, or you're checking in, on Twitter, wherever, Instagram. I want to hear who your most underrated factions were in wrestling. We can all sit here and talk about the Horsemen. We can all sit here and talk about Evolution, right? We could talk about that all day long. But who were the most underrated? Right. And I got two of them. To me, two of the most underrated factions in wrestling that nobody talks about. Number one is the Fabulous Freebirds. Listen, man, I'm sorry, but nobody gives enough credit to Michael Hayes and the formation of the Fabulous Freebirds, right? Michael P.S. Hayes, Terry Bam Bam Gordy, Buddy Rose, Jimmy Garvin, gorgeous Jimmy Garvin. Okay. Listen, they were, again, the perfect trolls, the perfect showman. Battle Devon Eriks all day long, right? But Bad Street USA, they had that HBK kind of music, right? Bad Street USA, which was great, because their voices were in that song. Okay, they had the muscle, okay, with guys like Terry Bam Bam Gordy, which is another very underrated wrestler, and they had all the charisma from gorgeous Jimmy Garvin and Michael P.S. Hayes, right? So, and again, this is early 80s, man. Early 80s, but they had some legendary Texas runs back in the day, right? But they had it all. They had the entrance, they had the theme song. They were before people start talking about factions, man. Before people start talking about factions. That's so to me, the Freebirds is my number one when it comes to not mentioned enough, forgotten about factions that don't give enough credit. And I'm going to give you my other one, which is the main event Mafia. TNA had its fair share, right? We all know people, Aces and Eights, I thought started out really good, but it got too much, right? It got too ridiculous. The main event Mafia to me was fantastic. Like it was their pushback to like an Evolution, but I think it was better. And people just didn't give TNA the credit that it deserves at the time where you needed that, because there was a time where wrestling in WWE went to TNN network. Remember TNN? Went to TNN. It was a really bad product. It wasn't a good product. And TNA offered you an alternative over to Impact. And it never took the next step, but it was very exciting. It did a lot of exciting things where a lot of people don't really talk about, right? Don't really talk about. Kurt Angle, Sting, Kevin Nash, Booker T, and Scott Steiner were the original main event Mafia. Main event Mafia. I love the name MEM. You saw, there was different factions of it later on with guys like Booker T and Samoa Joe, but the original, when you talk about Angle, Sting, Nash, and Booker T and Scott Steiner, I mean, listen, Sharmell, okay, was there as the mag because she was there with Booker T, but these guys all had gold. These guys had all had track records, right? They were all there at the twilights of their career. They were great on the mic. I mean, you never knew what Scotty Steiner was going to say, right? Big Papa Pump always had some interesting stuff to say. Kurt Angle was hurting back then, so it was perfect for him. But then remember, it evolutionized with Samoa Joe and AJ Styles, later on. So, but the main event Mafia, again, it was at a time where, remember, The Sopranos was the huge hit on HBO, and the mafia symbolized. Sorry, I was going to say symbolic, but the mafia word symbolized what was going on in a trending world, right? And I think that was very important right there. So you bank off the Kurt coattails of The Sopranos, and that's why they wore their suits. That's why they had the sunglasses, right? And that's where the word mafia comes from. So pretty ingenious to me when we talk about main event mafia. So yeah, I want to hear from me. So again, two factions in wrestling that don't get enough respect: the Fabulous Freebirds and the main event mafia, in my opinion. So my verdict is, I want to hear from you. I want to hear from you. I want to hear who your factions were that were most disrespected in the world of professional wrestling. So let's end on this. So we hit a lot of things, whether it be Football Friday, we hit on the DFS market, we hit on the prop market, we hit on Eagles Cowboys, we hit on the factions of wrestling. But let's end on the soft quarterback hits. And the question I want to ask you guys is, has protecting the quarterback hit a level of insanity where it doesn't allow the game to be actually played the right way? And this all stems from what happened with Tua. Okay, this all stems from what happened with Tua. And I want to give you guys some numbers, which I thought were pretty interesting, pretty daunting, if you ask me. And it just shows you, when there's a point of emphasis within the National Football League, sometimes, it not necessarily a good thing. It could be a bad thing, right? Because then it goes way out of hand. But some interesting insights here on concussions in the NFL for 2022. The question is, are they going unreported? And this is from the sportsdaily.com. It says 3.3 were reported per week in weeks 1 through 3, on pace for the lowest mark ever. Now, what we ask ourselves, is that lowest mark ever because the hits are being struck differently because of the rules, right? Because of the rules that are put in for player safety? Or are they being unreported? Because guess what? Once Tua goes down, then that number doubled. Week 4 and on, that number doubled. Concussions up in practice are up. Concussions in practice are up since 2018. So every year they've gone up at least 7 to 10%, which means concussions reported in practice, but down 35% in live games. The question again, are they going unreported? And I think this is a big deal for the NFL to look into. Listen, I'm all about player safety. I am, and concussions is a big deal. I'm going to be honest with you. Concussions and head injuries are one of the major points of emphasis in my household on why I did not want my boys playing football. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm fully transparent. You guys know that. I did not want them playing football. You want to play flag football? That's fine. But I couldn't trust them enough to put them out there to play the game of football because of the violent nature of it and the concussion issue. I did not want that. So I stayed away from that. Adam says there's more concussions in the league, but they don't report them, which is not good for the players. And that's what I'm getting at. These numbers are wild to me. I'll say it again. Concussions are up since 2018 in practice, but down 35% in live games. That's an astounding number to me. 35% is a big number. And I am not going to speculate on what's happening. I'm really not, because we don't know. This could just be all about player safety and the rules that they put in place. But I think that's an alarming number. That's an alarming stat that I think everybody needs to look at. I do. That is very discouraging to me. And I think the way you fix it is obviously to put more emphasis on the rules that you have in place. But calling soft quarterback hits like you saw on Derek Carr and Tom Brady are not it. They're not it, because then you're taking away, football insight, your instinct, I should say, right? You're taking that instinct away, which is very hard to do. Very, very hard to do. Players are instinctual, and they have instincts for a reason, and it's very hard to just take away those instincts and say, you know what, no more. So, for me, for my money, I think that there's definitely a way to fix this. I think, that spotter, I think it is a really good idea. It is because it takes the guesswork out of it. Like, again, a lot of people were mad because they said, with Teddy Bridgewater, he looked fine, but the spotter saw something. Listen, I'd rather err on the side of caution, to be honest with you. Okay, a football game can be won at any different time. It's okay. Player safety and player health needs to be at the pinnacle of priority. But my point is, that's why I like those spotters, because they can see things, and even if they're guessing, it doesn't matter. It gives you that, it takes the vulnerability away from it, and it gives you more of an outsider point of view who's not as biased when it comes to when that guy finished a game. And I think that's a problem. Again, those numbers are there, and those numbers are scary. Up since 2018 in practice, down 35% live games, 3.3 per week in week 1 and 3 being reported, on pace for the lowest number ever. But post Tua, once Tua goes down, we saw that situation, that number has doubled. So definitely something the NFL is going to have to work through. But listen, at the end of the day, you err on the side of player safety, you err on the side of caution. And if that means maybe calling a guy out of a game because you think he may have a concussion, we're going to have to deal with it. Rip your tickets up, rip your fantasy matchups up. This is all about players being safe. This is about players being able to perform in everyday life, not the game of football, but in everyday life when they're 35 and 40 years old. And I think that's something that we really have to put an emphasis, a priority on. As always, Tony Jigsaw Cutillo, Adam again says, great show once again. Thank you. Make sure you're following at Judge Jigsaw. You see it right here on Twitter, at Judge Jigsaw on Instagram. Make sure you're following the Final Judgment on YouTube. Make sure you're following the Final Judgment on wherever you get your podcast. Listen, I have one review right now. I greatly appreciate it. Go to the podcast page, whether it be iTunes. If you have iTunes, go on there and write me a review. Just give me a quick review. Just throw out, what do you think of the show so far? We're going in 2 months strong of the show, 15 plus episodes. And as you see, there's pop-up. We're going to be doing the post games, man. I want you guys to speak out. I want this to be very interactive. I want you guys to engage. The most important thing. Shout out to SEObrand.com for putting their faith in me as a host, and to be able to make these shows and make this content for you guys. Shout out to Heat Ratio Sports and Window Sports for giving me the platform to be able to talk where everyone said I couldn't have. So as always, go Birds, go Phils. And again, some people have thoughts, some people have takes, but on this show with Tony Jigsaw Cutillo is where you get the Final Judgment.